Still alive, huh?
Yeah, I'm still kicking a little bit at the moment.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm in Kiev right now. I'm in my studio I got in Kiev. I'm doing a-okay.
Nice. I imagine that property values are down, down, down right now in Ukraine. Probably pretty easy to get a place to stay at.
Dude, it's wild, man. I just didn't really fully comprehend before coming here how cheaper everything would be compared to DC, where I live in that area.
You
It's
should
insane.
buy the dip, become like a slumlord of Kiev.
I'm a slumlord of Kiev. Become a little like American warlord in the middle of Kiev.
Yeah, you know how like the Israeli occupiers will like take one house in a settlement and then
hmm
pretend something bad happened, the military gets sent in, people flee, and then more people run in to take the abandoned housing to claim it for Israel.
Yes,
Yeah,
I should do that.
you can be like the one man guy colonizer in Kiev where like they're like a apartment block flees, and when they come back you're like, yeah, it's mine now actually.
I'm gonna fund an entire city state that's like a narco state, but entirely through Patreon donations.
I mean, at
It's gonna
those
be
housing
great.
prices you probably could, right?
Unironically, man. Unironically.
So how you doing?
I'm doing okay. There were some sirens today, but I mean, like, that's just like, I mean, it's to be expected. I got back from filming in the Donbass probably a week and a half ago. So I've just been kind of looking for what's the next thing to film and kind of setting up my channel, trying to rebrand it towards a lot more serious content. I still want to do some entertainment, but a lot more serious content, a lot more pre-prepared content.
Gotcha. Reasonable. You've definitely moved away from, well, not necessarily moved away from the hippy dippy, but there's definitely a bit of a tone shift in the kinds of stuff that you're going over, uh, than there used to be.
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, Hippy Dippy was fun and everything, but I've said before that the last thing I want is some like Ukrainian politician or a soldier who's heard that they haven't that I could interview them to look up my channel and the thing they say is episode 93 N-word debate part 7.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been trying to move away from some of that stuff too. Maybe unsuccessfully, but it is true. I think that the insane like debate bro drama in farming can be really good at propelling you up to a certain level,
Absolutely.
but past a certain point, it's like a weight that drags you down. The drama is really good at leveling you at a certain point, but not letting you move above or below that.
This is the real glass ceiling, Vaush.
But like unironically though, because you can blow
Yeah,
up
it
so
is. It
quickly by
exists, man.
feeding
You
into
get
the
to a
trend,
point.
and
Like
then
Hippy Dippy got me to a point, but at Hippy Dippy as it wasn't gonna get me any higher. Definitely with Twitch polls slowly caving out.
yeah, it's I've heard that. It seems like it's a lot more independent stuff now. You know, like IRI doing his bit. I don't know
Yeah,
how much
Iroy's doing
group.
great, man. He's doing fantastic.
Well, he's on his grind set 24/7. He's like totally committed. You know.
He is. I found it difficult because, I think the type of content I would be doing, the type of streams I'd be doing, would do better on YouTube. Definitely because I could play a lot more war footage and like lean into like showing the reality of what's going on a lot more.
Mhm.
And I also feel that like the algorithm would just play better if I was on YouTube. And because like there's just no like culture of like war updates or like conflict journalism on Twitch whatsoever. I mean, I have a captive market, but there's also like no market. Um,
Well, there's
and
also
like
not
there,
like
hmm?
adjacent tags, right? Because you have news on
Is
YouTube.
zero.
People can just be looking current events on YouTube. On Twitch, the adjacent events are like Amaranth Titties, Andrew Tate, you know, video games. There's not really that much of a market for serious political commentary outside the drama
No,
mongering.
dude, there's like none. Honestly, there's I don't know of many people on Twitch who do serious political commentary anymore besides IRI. Everything else is either just gone like Dramasphere, Manosphere, or it's like they're living off of fumes, right? They're like a heroin addict, like they're one dose away from death.
Yeah. Maybe I should be glad that I got kicked off Twitch really early into my career and had to build it all up on YouTube.
Maybe. I mean, I've thought about like moving from Twitch to YouTube, but that shit's terrifying, and I got as little money as it is already, trying to like scrape up what I can to fucking fund this shit. Anyway.
Well, you have a White Leaf site now, don't you?
I do, and I'm trying to move people over to that. I'm working on it. I'm trying to move people over to it, but man, that it's difficult. People got used to being Twitch chatters. There's a lot of people who aren't used to doing that. But I'm slowly trying to move people over to that and get donations in there. And I have a Patreon. I'm gonna be working on that really hard. I'm gonna be posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff on Patreon, so
Oh,
I'm
hell yeah.
hoping that can pull me up.
It definitely takes time to pull people over.
I don't you like have a Patreon, but you just don't update it ever, but you still like rake in?
Hell yeah.
Dude, that's
Absolutely.
fucked, man.
Haven't
That's
posted
fucked.
anything there in like 2 years. I consider that like the working auto renew donation. I make no
Honestly,
promises
Vaush,
to content on that Patreon. I didn't fool
I'm
anyone.
not a communist, right? I don't know if I ever will be one. Yeah, it's not really an ideological difference. It's more just like I don't like instability after going to a country that's been kind of raked by it a little bit. Um, but I will say, seeing you put no effort into Patreon and make so much money off of it, pushed me closer to
Hey,
it, man.
only a few tens of thousands of dollars, not too much.
Oh, you motherfucker.
Yeah, it's I I think that content creators should be pretty, especially like politics content creators. I have no issue with them being shameless. It's a really unstable job. We have no idea what our income is going to look like a month from now, let alone a year from now.
Yeah.
Especially with the fucking work you're doing, man. You're literally in Ukraine. Like, I think you should just be as shameless about it as you want. Just whatever maximizes the income that you get, short of lying. As long as nobody's actually
I
lying.
honestly, man, I found it hard to fundraise for any of my shit. For like a few reasons. On one account, it's like I feel bad, man. I feel bad when I ask for money. I like before when I was asking for money, I was asking for money because there's like retard one was debating retard two, right? Excuse my French. And like I wanted to like make money off of it and I didn't feel like that money would go anywhere better. Like if you're stuck watching Idiot 1 debate Idiot 2 on my stream, then like you got nothing better to do. You should give me your money anyway, you dumb smuck, right? But when it's like, you know, I'm in a war zone and I'm like, hey, asking for money because I'm in a war zone and I need to raise money to do journalism, I'm constantly thinking like they could donate this money to probably better causes. They could donate it to a million different organizations that are doing charitable work, like the Angels of War, who I embedded with, or it's like those people that I just who I just did an interview with that are like signing the artillery shells, which you actually have them as your header. So I always feel bad when I ask for money. Like it's really just my editors like pushing me to ask for more money because
Yeah, but
it just feels bad every time I do it.
you think that. You think in your head like, well, they could donate it somewhere, but they're not going to. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Anybody who could be convinced into donating you, they weren't holding onto that $5 bill for like the charitable donation they were going to do the next minute over. They were going to spend it on ice cream or weed or whatever. At the end of the day, like everyone has to make the best case they can for their own funding. And it's not like the guilt you're feeling right now would be proportional to like you being, I don't know, Steven Crowder or some shit, like some genuinely wealthy person. Like, well, if you're making, you know, millions and millions of dollars, should you direct your funds around? I mean, you can talk about that, fair, but I don't think you're anywhere near the point where that would be even a consideration. You should be absolutely
Nah, man.
shameless.
I've spent around $30,000 on all of this.
Yeah, I'd say you're not in a position to be shameless. Or sorry, wait. You are not in a position to feel shameful. You are in a position to be shameless. Fucking go for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got a point. I mean, like I've dipped in the college fund, so it's like, well, like at this point, like I feel like, you know, I might as well just ask. I might as well just like, I need to lean into it if I'm gonna make the dough.
Yeah. Well, then fucking go for it. Don't just say do. Be shameless. Advertise right now.
Advertise right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say give me
Hey,
money on my
look.
stream.
Okay, look, all you little Vaush heads, okay? Put down the horse and pay attention for a few seconds, okay? My name's Dylan Burns, okay? I'm in Kiev right now. I went to the front line of Zaporozhye, embedded with medics, okay? I'm actually about to possibly go on another trip to a very interesting site that's in the news a lot right now. I just got back from the Donbass. I was over there. I was embedded as well. We interviewed people in Kramatorsk, which is a city the Russians are trying to take. There's a lot of shelling out there. I interviewed a lot of soldiers, a lot of civilians. I just released a video where I talked to the locals in Bucha who watched Russian soldiers shoot people for speaking Ukrainian. They talk about their testimony and stuff like that. Any support you can throw my way goes towards funding fixers, paying staff to edit these videos, paying local translators. All my translators are local, and I pay them American wages. I don't pay them Ukrainian wages. I pay them American wages. I feel shit about paying them anything else than what I think they deserve. And so I'm trying to put everything towards the Ukraine stuff. Any dime I'm making, I'm putting towards either my rent, my food, or my coverage. So anything you want to give me, I greatly appreciate. I'm very invested in this, and I care a lot about it.
Now do that in 5 minutes again, and you'll be truly shameless.
Perfect. That'll be great, man. Vaush, how have you
Unrelenting.
been, man?
Um, I've been good. I've been chilling. Honest to God, like I feel like we're in a holding pattern right now with the politics, because
Yeah.
like what I'm waiting. I feel like we're listening to the drum roll right now. As soon as Donald
Yeah.
Trump gets charged with something, pertaining to the Mar-a-Lago raid, like a big rollout or something, it's going to be months and months of high octane politics that I'm gearing up for. Um,
God, I hope he goes to prison.
I hope so. Even just if he gets charged, that is that is some historic shit right there. I just
But the
like
thing is with
right
Trump is if
now.
you don't pin him down, he's gonna struggle. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I mean, obviously, I want it to like actually work out. It would be pretty bad for us if he got charged and then exonerated. Um, and let's be real. Like, even if he got charged, the odds of him going to prison, even if he's found guilty, are nil. The idea of a former president in prison, especially one of his age and his wealth, it's just
I
unfathomable.
mean, yeah. I mean, there's other democracies who have done this, and this is how the system should work. Is when you commit a crime, you go to prison. Doesn't matter who you are, right? But man, the man has a lot of connections. The man has a lot of money. The man has a lot of political allies. Yeah, it's risky. It's certainly risky. The idea of like trying to charge him and actually put him behind bars. But man, it'd be cool to be able to say like, yeah, Trump can't run again because he's a fucking felon.
Yeah, yeah, law and order. Um,
Law and order, baby. Law and
I
order. I think every felon should be able to vote except Trump. Could you imagine he can't even vote anymore?
yeah, well, I
Oh my
mean,
god.
honest to God, that would be an acceptable consequence of running for public office anyway, in my opinion. Kind of a symbolic one, since it's just one vote, if nothing else. The
It's true, man.
fuck. I guess for right now, it just feels like we're setting up so many things, but like the payoff is going to happen soon. It's going to happen any day now. Something's going to happen, you know.
Oh
There's going to
yeah,
be a big
dude.
mass
It was.
shooting,
I
or
gotta say, it was like pornography when Trump's place got raided, and it wasn't because it just got raided, right? It was because I saw everybody start digging their own graves in advance, right? We saw Sean Hannity, we saw Ted Cruz, we saw Marco Rubio, we saw Steven Crowder, we saw all these people on the day of come out and start like putting out these verbose statements of like, this is the darkest day in the history of your civil liberties. Like, oh yeah, the darkest day in history of my civil liberties is when a former game show host got arrested because he wanted to keep weapons that have to do with, the documents about weapons that could end the planet in his beach resort because he couldn't do that. It's the darkest day in my civil liberties. Yeah, sure, buddy.
which is
Yeah, sure.
I'm just waiting. Like, okay, we have the Jan 6 committee got a hold of Alex Jones' phone records because his idiot lawyer
Oh yeah, dude,
put
it's so
forward all that.
great.
So they have that. The Jan 6 committee is also going to be getting info, no doubt, I'm sure, from the Mar-a-Lago raid. I'm sure there's something there that'll pertain to the investigation that they're doing. We're waiting on the hat to fall for that. There's going to be some mass shooting at like a gender clinic or some shit that's going to happen soon, invariably, and that's going to cause a ton of fallout. We right now we have a bunch of like running Republican politicians, like prospective congressional candidates, who are saying stuff like, yeah, we should kill Merrick Garland, we should kill the FBI, blah blah blah. But we haven't seen that level of like direct stochastic terrorism incitement from a sitting official yet. Though they've gotten pretty close. I'm just waiting for like everything to fall into place for the happening to begin. Because until then, it just feels like I keep setting up like like those TV shows where they set up like 17 premises like
Mhm.
for like when the drop is going to happen, and it just keeps establishing more things that haven't been resolved. I'm just waiting for that to go somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, God, I honestly believe that Trump might have actually just like punched his button on this time. There's so many times he's gotten away with it, but I really think he might have punched his button this time. He really fucked himself over. And when I say punch his button, I mean like, he screwed himself, not that he hit his prostate.
I hope so. I watched the Legal Eagle video on the
Mhm.
charges being brought against Trump in the Mar-a-Lago, right? Or not charges, but the things they were looking for, the charges they would bring. And
Mhm.
the way Legal Eagle talked, he sounded very confident that this was like settled essentially. That assuming they were able to find the nuclear documents, which we pretty much know they have, that everything's like pretty well and done, and that everyone at Mar-a-Lago should be lawyering up. Um,
I guess the thing that
We'll
really makes
see.
me pretty confident is that Merrick Garland and an FBI official appointed by Trump had to at least, at the very least, give this a thumbs up for this to take place. And if an FBI official appointed by a man whose main priority is loyalty when it comes to like a belief in like politics, he's like primarily just an oligarch at heart, appointed an FBI director, and that FBI director gave this a thumbs up, like there's no way this wouldn't have happened unless it was extremely serious what he did, extremely egregious.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If he does get arrested, mind you, or placed under house arrest, which is more likely, I think, there is going to be literal violence in the streets. It's not going to be possible to avoid that.
I released a video. It's like a 40-something long video about civil war and the odds of civil war in the United States. And the conclusion I come to, after looking at like terrorism data from the 1970s, how the U.S. government is approaching these far-right militias, how organizations like the Three Percenters have just like fallen apart post January 6th, and now they're like a complete shell of their former selves. Is I don't think there's like any real possibility of civil war right now, right? I think the real possibility is a spike in terror attacks, a spike in right wing terrorism, which we've been seeing that trend in the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, the White House has been warning about this for a very long time. But I do not think any of these forces are organized enough or even well armed enough to try to conduct themselves as like some mass army against the United States government. It would mostly be, and the biggest threat for me is a spike in right wing terrorism to try to like threaten people into voting a certain way or like intimidate queer people or Democratic politicians.
Well, my main concern right now, recently Three Arrows came out with a video that talked about this, is that if the bad stuff happens, it's not going to be so much a civil war as it would be the capture of the Supreme Court, basically like undoing the ability for the federal government to function, and allowing the states to essentially like pick the next president because of the whole Harper Moore stuff. And then once they're president, they reinstate federal power, and they basically just like he described the parallel with Nazi Germany. Like the Nazis didn't take over Germany necessarily via force. They did it through through institutional capture. And that's the concern here, I think. The hope would be that if Trump got arrested or put in house arrest, and they do take to the streets, there is like this uprise in violence, the Republicans might stupidly overplay their hand, which might lead to like arrest of several officials, and it might cripple their movement before they get the chance to really fuck over things on an institutional level. That'd be the
I
hope.
think the slow degrade of civil liberties in our institutions is the thing that scares me the most. And also a slowly normalizing election deniers being in positions of authority over United States elections, like in Nevada with a Republican nominee who believes that 2020 was a big fraud and it was stolen. 100 prospective general Republican nominees, 100 are big election deniers. Only 2 voted to impeach Trump over his many crimes while in office. And so I think the slow degrade is what scares me more than anything else. But when it comes to the idea of like organized violence, I don't think organized mass violence is the real threat. I think it would be individual kind of lone wolf attacks from schizophrenics with an internet connection, which people who aren't connected to reality, the forum browsers. I mean, Trump's house was raided by the FBI. That's fucking insane. A former president's home being raided by the FBI, and the only thing that came of it really was a bunch of threats, which are bad, and one schizo trying to attack a what was it? It was an FBI Cincinnati office with a nail gun.
And then immediately decried as being an Antifa false flag federal agent. The nanosecond
I
they
think
finish
that the
shooting
problem is with these militias is like the one militia would call the other militia a false flag. They'd all kill each other, and then it would end.
Well, again, like the real threat is institutional capture.
Yeah.
If America like functionally balkanizes with a paralyzed federal government, and the red states and the blue states like just start doing their own shit. Like imagine like DeSantis like calling in state guard that he's tried to privatize, by the way, to like fucking forcibly segregate like queer students from schools. I know that sounds insane, but like
Yeah,
I
it
don't
does.
think it's that far off from the shit that they would do.
I do think the segregations of queer students is a little far off. I don't think the capture of election posts by election deniers is far off. I think that's the thing that scares me the most. Because let's say that the authority of the courts are whittled down, Because the big concern for me is, for example, during the recent primary, there was, and I think it was in Arizona, where they actually, or it was New Mexico, there was a local election where the election officials refused to certify it because of, the election denying fraud nonsense. 2 days later, the courts overturned it because that's what the courts are supposed to do. They're supposed to look these people in the face like you're a fucking moron, smack them across the face, and keep our system rolling on. If that judicial authority is removed, that's when these state officials can really go ham and just do whatever the fuck they want. If these states are able to manage the elections without a codified, centralized system.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which of course they're devastatingly close to getting what they want there. Obviously the more Harper stuff would also give the legislators, which are overwhelmingly Republican, across the country, a lot more discretion when it comes to all of this shit as well for cementing their future power.
Yeah,
so
I will say
all
though,
cool
the referendum in what was it, Tennessee? What was it, 69% to stop the ban of abortion? My God, man. Yeah, I think it'd be a smart move, and I've said this a few times. I understand people have a moral problem
Kansas,
with like referendums on an issue of civil. What was that?
Oh, Kansas, but yeah.
Kansas, they're all the same. Okay, I'm a coastal elitist. Every state that just is a big fucking square.
All
okay,
flyover states. I see.
Yeah, of course. The uneducated flyover states. I'm the liberal here, trying to finally give them some knowledge. But yeah, Kentucky Fried wherever, okay, it was. They had an election where 69% and a plus 22 Trump state ended up voting against abortion being banned. I think running on a referendum, like across every state on the issue of abortion, just pushing that publicly would be really good PR and be really good for the struggle for abortion rights. If it was 69 in that state, I find it hard to believe there's really any state that could actually stop that overflowing support.
Well, the referendum in that case was to prevent the overturn of a constitutional amendment. I don't know what the apparatuses would be or who would put forward a referendum in a lot of these states, because in that case they had to use the referendum as a mechanism to overturn the amendment. But in a lot of those red states, I think the legislator would have to put forward the referendum like willingly, to let people challenge it, which I don't know why they do that.
Which the Republicans won't want to after seeing these results. And so it's so easy to hit them on this, saying they won't have a referendum on this because they don't trust the people with their own bodies, or they even make decisions about their own bodies, either as an individual or as a collective.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that would roll right off them, right? Because they would, like, the argument has never been about bodily autonomy for them. It's always been about, the precious lives of the
they just say, you want to vote to kill children? Yeah, that's how it'll go.
Right, and they would, it would be like some sort of galvanizing. I don't think they would ever prompt like doing it themselves. I think they'll avoid it as much as possible.
No, but I just think it would be good PR. Generally, it's good optics.
If we could, yeah.
Or if a referendum on anything is always good optics, because then you're just like, see, I'm the voice of the people.
Yeah, if only they actually cared about that as much as they pretended to.
Of course.
All right, well, thinking about American politics is depressing me. Let's go to a part of the world that's less in trouble, Ukraine. How's it going?
Yes. How's it going in Ukraine? It's going. I mean, it's when people ask me how it's going, I always like, there's two metrics to measure this. If you measure this by just like a war is going on, how's it going? Then it's like, I mean, you have victories, you have losses. But if you measure this by the original expectations everyone had and what the Russians' original war goals were, then obviously the Ukrainians are fucking dominating. None of Russia's original war goals have been achieved in over 170 days of brutal combat. They have not been able to demilitarize Ukraine, which was a war goal. In fact, Ukraine's more militarized than ever. They have not been able to stop the expansion of NATO, which was one of the stated claims, even though I don't think that was as massive as a reason as many people lead on. Sweden and Finland are joining NATO. So the idea of like, oh, what about nukes or along the Russian border? Or what about NATO expanding its hold along the Russian border? Well, that's already over. They've already lost on that. So it's been a massive failure on that front. When it comes to regime change, and they flew Yanukovych to Belarus to try to install him after Zelensky would be gone. Zelensky's still in power. They still control the vast majority of Ukrainian territory. When it comes to protecting the people of the Russian speakers, that seems to be complete bullshit on two accounts. On one account, they haven't been able to capture all of the territory. They still haven't captured all of the Donbass, which I would have thought would have fallen like 5 to 10 days. But we were all wrong about Ukrainian morale.
The lines haven't moved. They haven't moved.
They haven't moved in the last month at all, really. There's like this big anticipation of a Ukrainian counterattack in Kherson. A lot of people have been talking about this for a while. I'm waiting for it. It might happen. It might not. If I knew it was gonna happen or not, I sure fucking wouldn't tell anybody. So I'm not the best person to talk on it anyway. But also they haven't captured all of the Russian ethnic speaking territory, whatever the hell you want to call it. And not only have they not captured it, but if the goal was to protect the Russian speakers of Ukraine, which it never was, but that's what they espoused their goal to be. All the soldiers I meet out east, they're all fucking Russian speakers. They're all speaking in Russian. They're all from like local territorial defense units in Zaporozhye, the same territory they're talking about liberating. The people that are fighting the hardest against the Russians are the Russian speakers. All the polling data seems to indicate that they don't want to be under occupation. Fuck, man, it's
What polling data is there on there in an active conflict zone? How could they even obtain?
It was
that?
actually it was polling data from before the war. It was from April of 2021. I think it was actually from an FSB source. I could send it to you if you wanted to see it, but it was like around 70-something% of Eastern Ukrainians would consider it to be like occupation for the Russians to come. They would consider it like a form of occupation.
So that's
not a form of liberation.
The Donbass, but not including the portions of it that have been under separatist control since 2014, right? It would be like the sections of the Donbass that have not been under Russian control, or all of it.
I can send you the poll right now if you wanted to check it out.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, just curious.
It's from a new WAPO article. This is a friend of mine, Joel Wasserman. I got a few beers with him. He's a cool Ukrainian duder.
Wait, I know Wasserman, don't I?
Do you know Wasserman?
Is Wasserman my oomphy? Hold on.
I don't know.
No, I might be thinking of another Wasserman. Okay, let me see.
Ah.
Very illuminating from new. Walpole article.
This data was from before the war. He said it was recent, but it was actually before the war.
Oh, I'm thinking of Dave Wasserman. Gotcha, Dave Wasserman, not Joe Wasserman. FSB polling right before the war found that Eastern Ukraine, 71.1% of people would find the arrival of Russian troops in Ukraine to be occupation instead of liberation. I'll have to take a look at the article itself to see what they consider to be Eastern Ukraine, but still, that's good. Also, I hear an echo.
Hear an echo from me? Oh, sorry, I don't have headphones. My headphones broke. And I don't have the money to replace them, so I've been using speaker streams.
Oh, Jesus. Well, it only happened for a second. It's fine now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, Vaush, what do you make of the war right now?
We covered some stuff recently. Ukrainian artillery destroying the bridge behind Kherson, so they cut off supply lines to the soldiers that are occupying the city. That signals confidence. The drone strikes on Crimea signal confidence to me. I think
drone strikes. There was drone. You know there were drone strikes
on Crimea. Well, people in chat were saying there were drone strikes. We were looking at the bombings. I didn't check to see whether it was artillery or drones.
I mean, from what I would think it would be ATACMS missiles. I mean, that's what everybody's suspecting. The Russians are saying saboteurs. There's another instance where they were saying it was a cigarette being dropped. It's a huge mystery about what it was, but a drone would be a surprise.
Okay, well then I am wrong on this. We'll say a cigarette being dropped tactically by the
tactical cigarette dropping. Yes,
by the Ukrainian saboteurs. Either way, this seems like it's going to turn into one of those forever wars. Because Ukraine has essentially an infinite amount of munitions to go through. Like, if this continues, I think the West is going to keep them supplied to the point that they can at least maintain the line. Russia's economy is in the toilet, but they've also basically walled off their economy, and have kept it in stasis and a perpetually.
Did you see the Yale report about the Russian economy?
No, I've not seen any Yale report.
So I released a video on this. If anybody wanted to check it out, it's titled "The Russian Economy is Collapsing," and there's a lot of data that came out of this Yale study. So what you'll see a lot of people talking about when they talk about the Russian economy, a lot of Russian propagandists, and even just normal reporters, is they're just going to repeat whatever the Russian state tells them, because people are so desperate for data on the Russian economy to talk about how sanctions is or isn't having an effect that they'll just take whatever the Russians say and they'll just republish it. But the Russians have been cherry picking the amount of data they're giving. There's a ton of data. They're just exports and shipping lines, a ton of stuff they're just not giving anymore that they used to. produce for the public to see. And the reason they're not publishing this data is because the data makes it look fucking terrible. Over 500,000 Russians have left Ukraine since the start of the war. 15,000 of those being like high value, like very wealthy, like over like $1 million a year immigrants.
Wait, how many people have left?
500,000.
500,000. I thought I heard 5,000, and I was confused by the insubstantiality of the number.
5,000 people. Yeah.
500,000.
No, it was 500,000. It's a massive number. There's like 500,000 people have left. God, I can just send you the report to look at it, but the Russian economy is not doing good. It's gotten so bad that they've started to cannibalize their auto, rail, and airline industry to the point where what they're doing is airlines are taking parts from other planes, grounding those planes permanently. Some companies have like 40% of their planes grounded, just taking parts out of it and using it to replace the other parts on other planes because they can't import these parts anymore.
Wow.
And this is while Boeing is actively saying that plane cannibalization is against safety standards. And so the trucks that they're making, the cars that they're making right now, I think there was an 84% reduction in people buying automobiles in Russia. This is due to, you know, the loss of jobs, a loss of income, the loss of capital, loss of a lot of things. But it's gotten so bad that I think there was a 90% drop off in the sale of foreign cars because, you know, they can't import that shit anymore. And the new cars they're making are like much more expensive, but they also don't have airbags. They're making trucks without airbags. It's gotten bad. And people like try to talk about like the ruble, which is very obviously artificially inflated. It's even been admitted by the Russian government that it's largely artificially inflated. And as if that's enough to like make up for the rest of the failings in the Russian economy, which is they have a general decrease in GDP, I think a 62% decrease in GDP when it comes to construction, while they're talking about they're going to rebuild Ukrainian controlled territory that they've
I imagine a lot of
annex.
The resources and personnel that are normally directed towards construction are contributing to the war effort right now. It must be taking like their desperate their crumbling economy, like it must take an insane proportion of their economic power to maintain this level of invasion and occupation with what they have. Like that must be directing a ton of the country's resources away from other things.
If what Russia is saying on the books when it comes to paying their soldiers was anything close to true, then their model is completely unsustainable. Because a lot of the more recent recruits and recruiting ads are saying like $3,000 a month plus enlistment fees. Like, wow, that's a lot of money to be making in Russia. That's why also a lot of the vast majority of people who are dying, or a higher percentage than average of the people who are dying in Russia are Tuvans, or they're from territory within Russia that has like higher poverty rates, which end up usually being minority groups like the Tuvans. But from what I'm hearing by word of mouth and from what I'm reading, there's no way they're going to be paying that much, actually. And if they do, it's just unsustainable because that's not even only paid by the federal government. The enlistment fees have to be covered by local governments. That'd be like you hearing that the state of like California has to pay part of the salary for soldiers that go and fight in the federal army. It's incredible. Like it's not sustainable.
Aren't they legitimately starting to like get close to run out of tanks? I know that they have 10 trillion tanks left over from the Cold War, but in terms of like stuff that isn't just a pile of rust and mildew sitting in a depot somewhere in Siberia, in terms of stuff they can actually field, they had what 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 tanks that were viable, and they've lost haven't they lost like 2,000 tanks? I mean, they've actually lost like a significant portion of their armor.
I sent you the slideshow that talks about the study from Yale about the Russian economy. Just look at any of these graphs. None of these graphs spell good signs for the Russian economy. But for me, honestly, when it comes to the Russian strategy with tanks, I don't think they're going to run out of tanks. They might use less and less high quality tanks and have to fall back on old storages and trying to update old tanks. But I think a lot of this for the Russian strategy is they're not even using these tanks properly. They don't have enough soldiers to use these tanks properly. Usually how you use tanks in battle is you like fill the tank up with a crew, or the same thing would you go with like an armored personnel carrier or whatever you would be using, and they'd be flanked by soldiers. But a lot of these tanks and a lot of these armored personnel carriers, especially concerning with the armored personnel carriers, considering the point of them is to transport personnel, they're understaffed. They're lacking good tank crews. They're only giving a lot of these new recruits 30 days training. So if you want them to be part of a tank crew, they're not going to be really good. And they're not supported by like infantry that's flanking them. And so they're just getting picked off. That's why a lot of times in the war, you would just see these lone tanks kind of just driving alone before getting picked off. If you're not supported, yeah, it's not going to be that crazy that like a crew with just a single anti-tank mine or a or like a Panzerfaust or whatever is going to be able to take you out.
When are we going to see the T-34s? They have to start, if they dig deep enough into the depots, we're going to see the T-34s.
I believe one has already been used in some of the footage that I saw.
No shot. That had to be like a statue or something. That's too funny to be
one
real.
has been used as a statue. There was this instance, I think it was in Severodonetsk, where the Ukrainians actually pulled the ceremonial T-34 statue down to try to divert Russian fire so they would think it was a real tank, so they'd fire upon it instead of them. But I think there was one instance, and I think it was with either the LPR or the DNR, I'd have to double check this, where they were using a T-34 tank actively. Yeah, there's the example. The Battle of Lysychansk, a T-34 tank that was used from a pedestal, but it wasn't driven. They just dragged it off to make it look like it was being used. And now it's being used as part of a checkpoint by the Russians.
And it seems to have been painted Ukrainian colors at some point.
Which of course the Russians didn't like.
Well, I'm sure they were very mad about it. Also, a tank does look pretty fucking ugly in blue and yellow. That's a pretty garish color.
It does kind of, yes. It's very, I don't think it's very battle ready. It's like the French during World War I, when they were first fighting, they were all wearing blue uniforms, walking across fields, getting massacred. Yeah. Like that.
Fucking imperial uniforms that you would use to like as Belgians colonizing.
They are snappy though.
Oh, sure, yeah. Just they get less snappy when you get shot.
Yeah, but they're so cute.
Man. I just want to see the T-34s, man.
Go up. You missed. There's the good one. The technology sector of Russia. It's right there. 40 to 60% inflation in the technology sector. Hey, here's a fun fact. And here's two facts about two Russian companies. So when it comes to the technology sector, they're actually facing shortages of gamer headsets, or like high quality gamer headsets from like Sony and companies like that. So the CS:GO nerds are fucking molding and crying their fucking eyes out. And when it comes to like those same gamers, they're like, okay, well, I can't get my good gamer headset. I'm angry. I'm going to go get McDonald's. Wait, McDonald's has left the country and it's re-entering Ukraine. Well, I have this Russian version, because what happened when McDonald's left the country is they handed over the company to like local like businessmen who bought up all the companies and like turned it into like WhackDonald's, like a McDonald's ripoff. And on the logo of the company is a burger and fries, and like this kind of like the minimalist art style, right? Just like a circle and two lines is supposed to represent a burger and fries. And like within like a month of them like going into service, or 2 months, they ran out of fries. The sanctions are hitting them so hard due to the sanctions, they can't import enough potatoes to actually produce fries at a sustainable rate. And so on their logo, they have something which they don't even sell at their company anymore, because the economy is hitting them so hard and the sanctions are hitting them so hard because they can't get fries. How do you not have fries at a McDonald's ripoff?
Russia's
and you have it on your logo.
Which is running out of Coke and can't use the words Happy Meal, is trademarking Coca-Cola and Kids Combo as replacements. Damn. It's rough out here, man.
It's rough out there being a fat man in Russia right now.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh, God. Well, I hope the Russian citizens don't, like, starve to death or whatever, but it's kind of...
I don't think you're going to see, like, a huge spike in that, but you're going to see a lot of companies just not be... These companies are going to get fucked, man. Like, there's no way. I just don't believe it. And, this is the thing I'm always told. Like, don't worry, Dylan. Don't worry for the Russian economy. They'll just pivot towards Asia. China doesn't give a fuck. Like, they think China and Russia are like best friends.
Well, I think
all the people talk about, like,
liability.
This is the new. They're gonna break up American hegemony. China and Russia have a lot of competing geopolitical interests. China is taking advantage of Russia right now. They're actually buying oil from Russia at a $35 discount because of their bad negotiating position.
Well, Russia.
Yeah.
Oh, just Russia's long been a liability to China, right? Russia's been decaying since the 90s with like essentially no indication of positive upward growth, and China's pretty intelligently leveraged its trade relationships to become at least adjacent to a world superpower. You've got the Belt and Road Initiative for neo-imperialism. They're doing stuff, right? Like, Russia doesn't really have a place in the modern world. the way China
The
does.
problem is the United States, Japan, South Korea, Germany, all these countries are more economically important to China than Russia by 1,000,000%. It's not even close. The number one place where Russian imports come from is China. They import about $72 billion of goods from China. Um, I think it was last year or for some quarter, right? It was like 70, and like number two was Germany at 27 billion. So it's not even close. But for Chinese exports, like when it comes to like how important the Russian market is for them, Russia's like number 11. Like they're at 72 billion, yeah, but America's at 506 billion. Japan's at 185. South Korea 138. Netherlands 130. It goes on and on and on. Germany, the UK is above them for God's sakes. I mean, the Russian market does not as matter as much to the Chinese government as does the American market. And this is all while Chinese exports to Russia have more than halved. It was like, I think it was like, I forget how much, but it halved from, I think it was 8.14 billions in the last quarter to like 3.8. So the idea that the Russians are going to be able to do import subsidization with Chinese exports, or they're going to be able to export all their oil and gas to China, even though they don't even have the infrastructure set up to do so and won't have the infrastructure set up for years. Like, nah, man, I think a lot of people overestimated how much the Chinese government would be sympathetic with Russia's position. And the Chinese are taking advantage of it. And Chinese companies are afraid to trade with Russia right now because they're afraid of the impact of American sanctions could have on their companies because the American market's more important.
I just want to see the T-72s. That's what I want to see. I just want their economy to fall apart so they can't rebuild, repair.
You mean the T-34s?
Oh, sorry, the T-34s, my bad. I just want to see the T-34s roll out. That's what I want. I just want to see something with flimsy sheet metal armor plating that could be, like, crumpled into nothing by a single grenade, let alone a Javelin missile.
Dude, I've seen Russian troops being transported around in garbage trucks, man.
No, yeah, well, for their general... Because the total number of their, like, armored vehicles that they've lost has been insane. It's like nearing 10,000
Honestly, I think the
total.
manpower is a bigger issue for them than them losing one or two tanks because they have so much armor and reserves. But due to their restricted mobilization, they're trying to make up for their lack of manpower by forced mobilization of occupied territory in Ukraine, which is technically a war crime, by the way. Every time I see one of those tanks blow up, I just think about how many people died in those tanks and how those are people they can't really replace. And like they can try to like maybe we'll increase recruitment at home and increase the amount of benefits people are going to get from serving in the military, which is going to increase the government's deficit, which they've gone into for the first time in years. But man, like once they start killing the middle class Muscovite, which is Putin's base, like then you're fucked politically.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to break first. I just know that I want to see the T-72s. I'm looking at right now. It says that they're nearing 2,000 tanks confirmed lost and 4,000 armored combat vehicles. I just know that past a point, a lot of it is a morale thing too, right? I think like right now, the soldiers they have out there in the in the field. I mean, it's a source of morale for them to be able to look around and see something approximating modern armor. But the more that falls apart, the more like shit they send people out there with. Oh wait, it's echoing again. I think you need to talk.
Oh,
there you go. Yeah, the auto detect mic. Just anyway, the worse the state of their like supportive armor, the worse the morale is going to be for the soldiers. And I don't know if there's some sort of like mass defection, the way we saw some at the beginning of the war that have kind of settled down for a bit. That'd be pretty cool. And that would do a lot to like lessen the bloodshed.
Russian morale is so shot right now. So it's shot for a few reasons. It's shot because they've had so high casualties. It's shot in part because a lot of this is forced mobilization. They're just forcing Ukrainians in occupied territory to fight against their government, which again is a war crime. It's shot in part due to the bad training that a lot of the new recruits who are coming in with only 30 days training to serve are getting. It's also pretty bad condition because of the state of their weapons, but also due to the lack of pay. I've gotten a lot of reports by word of mouth and by other means of Russian soldiers just not getting paid. I think there was like these sanitation workers from Moscow who came to the Luhansk Oblast in order to like help rebuild or, you know, help manage the Luhansk Oblast. And they just haven't been paid in months. And so when you've got shit weapons, you got no pay, you've got high casualties, and you got bad training, that's not enough. And forced mobilization amongst the local civilian population, a population who is not friendly to your occupation. Like it's just you're just creating a disaster that'll cave in on itself. It's rotten.
Well, at least we know that we can exacerbate the morale issues for the fact that they have these Russian conscripts that are rolling out there with no training and shoddy armor, and they know they're going up against literally, like, advanced Western military equipment. Imagine being a Russian nationalist, like one of the ideological diehards that going out there, huffed up on Kremlin propaganda that there are two superpowers in the world, and then they're like running out there in like garbage trucks with reissued guns and reissued uniforms as American-made HIMARS rain down on their MOD posts. That's gotta suck for them.
It's weird because I think the amount of like modern Western equipment you get depends where you are in the country. Depends on like what unit you are. Are you like professional military or are you like local defense force? When I went to the front line and I embedded with some aid workers who then we embedded with Ukrainian soldiers, the equipment I was seeing, I did see some American support. I think the majority of the American support I saw was in rations. I saw a lot of American rations, which were not expired like the Russian ones. But like all the equipment was Soviet era. I saw SPG-9s, which are these anti-tank recoilless rifles that are Soviet era 1960s, but they were actually made fresh at the factory, but they're Soviet era weapons. I think it was like a DP-27 or DP-28, which is a machine gun from World War II.
Yeah, it still shoots
on the
bullets.
front lines. It was 1 mile from Russian positions when we got that close to the front. So I haven't seen a ton of Western weapons, but I was also on the Zaporozhye front, which has not been the most active front. So I'm sure all the fresh Western weapons are going to places like the Donbass. It's going to Kherson, locations, Kharkiv, not the Zaporozhye front.
You just have to understand that at this point, the conflict has gone so poorly for Russia, and I've consumed so many non-credible defense memes about this conflict that all I'm imagining at the Donbass is like a line of Ukrainian warriors in mecha suits with pulse rifles standing off against a bunch of guys in their underwear, wearing like blue and white striped tank tops, and carrying like AKs, and that to me is this conflict. I think
that seems like a reserved and classy way to look at the conflict.
Thank you. The brain damage has set in. It is terminal, and there's nothing that I can do. I am like, memes aside, I am heartened by a lot of what I'm hearing right now, and a lot of what I've seen recently. I mean, just this stream, we saw the Kherson bridge being blown. I like those signs of confidence from the Ukrainian military. They've been pretty brash, pretty balls to the wall the entire conflict, which has always been a really good strategy, I think, because maintaining that confidence both from abroad and in their own soldiers has been critical, and I think it works. I really hope it pays off.
Yeah, I think the Kherson offensive is what I'm most looking forward to. I'm looking forward to it for a few reasons. Number one, like they have been obviously targeting these bridges, and by taking out these bridges, it makes it much more difficult for the Russians to move in and to move out heavy equipment, which is going to be needed by Russian defenders for any concentrated, determined Ukrainian counteroffensive that could take back the area. The Russians are dealing with the civilian populace in Kherson. They're dealing with the civilian populace all across the country, which does not like them. But in Kherson, they don't like them the most. And there's a determined resistance movement as well, which have been conducting assassinations against collaborators, which, I mean, good for them, deserved. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope it manifests. I'm just worried that we're just going to hear all this talk about counteroffensive, and then nothing really manifests, or they try to manifest it, but it just kind of fuddle-duddles out and just doesn't produce anything. Because if that's the case, then this war is going to take I think, even longer than it would be if it was successful. Then it's going to be, we're going to be talking about not 1 year or two, like we could talk about 2, 3, 4, 5, like a much longer conflict.
Oh, I fully expect this to go on for a long time. I don't think there are any circumstances under which the Russian government would ever actually surrender. Even if Ukraine manages to push all the way back to their borders, I can imagine the fight just stalling at the actual historical border between Ukraine and Russia. even if Ukraine could maintain that and were principled enough to not invade Russia in a counterattack, which I'm sure there are people there who want to if they got the chance. Even if they held that line right there, like I think Russia would just keep taking shots at them from the side, and holding down the area that was held by separatists since 2014. That part of the Donbass would invite constant like. Yeah, I don't think Russia's ever going to stop funding separatists there. I don't know what it would take to like actually end the conflict, because the conflict's been going on since 2014, and the only one who can really end it is Russia. But I don't know what it would take to make them end it. They're losing everything. They had very little to begin with. They're losing everything. Frankly, it doesn't take that much money to fund separatists in the Donbass. Maintaining the invasion is costly, but it doesn't cost the Russian government that much to like put in some agitators and some equipment into the contested area. That's a pretty easy thing to maintain over a long period, and as long as that's happening, the war's still on.
I think differences in the balance of power and like just realities of war can make the impossible very possible quickly. The idea of Japan surrendering but during the Second World War was ridiculous for many people.
Yeah, we had to do a lot to Japan before they actually changed their mind, though.
Absolutely, we did have to do a lot to Japan. But I think there's also a difference here where all the Russians have to do to stop this is leave. Right? There does not need to be a Treaty of Versailles. I believe something like that is very unlikely. I hear from a lot of people trying to compare this to the Treaty of Versailles, and we can't humiliate Russia, because if we humiliate Russia, it's going to be like the Germans in World War I, World War II. The problem is the Treaty of Versailles was a document which called for the demilitarization of the Rhineland, which made Germany lose its internationally recognized borders. It lost territory. They had to demilitarize. They had to basically completely shut down the Air Force and pay huge amounts of reparations, right? On top of like admitting guilt for the war. All the Russians have to do here is leave. And so if the military reality forced them into a position where they have to leave, I think it would be a situation like Kiev. Now, maybe Moscow could try to like spin it in a way of like, well, we took Mariupol and then we killed all the Nazis. So, military operation is successfully denazified. But if they're in a military position where they don't really have a choice to stay or withdraw, then it's not really a question of like, well, the Russians accept it. Like, it's like, well, do you accept me walking up and bitch slapping you? Do you have a say? Not really, if I swing hard enough.
Oh, the critical difference, too, is that the Treaty of Versailles was kind of unfair. They all agreed to pin the blame on Germany as a way of deflecting from the fact that there were a lot of responsible parties involved. Whereas in this case, this shit is 100% on Russia. So even if that is what happened, it would be a pretty fucking warranted, at least attitude to take. I hope so. I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, unfortunately, we can't do the real solution to World War II's villains, which is break Russia apart into multiple pieces and have different allied countries occupy them. Fun as that would be to have a 51st state all the way on the other side of the world. I don't know. Maybe this war ends when Putin dies of cancer. Have you heard he might only have a couple of years?
He might have cancer. He might have only a couple of years. I think I've said this before, and I wonder what you think about it. I always wonder if Vladimir Putin at all did this invasion in part because he's sick, or he's not even sick, but he's old and he's worried about his legacy. And when you look at Vladimir Putin's legacy when it comes to Russia, like you could talk about maybe like stabilization, or something like that. But there's not much outside of that when it comes to like military victory.
No
conquest. He took Crimea, but I think he wanted to cement his legacy, and I think that's part of the reason why he invaded here. And well, wanting legacy does not necessarily give you the legacy you want. He's gonna have a legacy. I just don't think it's gonna be the one he wants.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it might. I mean, it might really just be that. It might be that stupid and petty, which is very unfortunate and a strike against authoritarianism as a viable mode of government. There are people who are like that, right? Like, I'm leaving soon, so why the fuck does it matter? And fascists are terminally obsessed with legacy and conquest. And the Crimean annexation, you're right, isn't really it's not real conquest. That's not really anything. So maybe this is just an effort at getting the old glory done before he's dead.
I think that's part of it. I definitely think that's part of it. Is there any questions you had about any of the footage I took, or any of my time in Ukraine, or being on the Zaporozhye front or my trip to Donbass, anything?
No, I want to watch your videos on stream. I want your permission. Which videos do you feel like I can watch without view stealing?
So, okay, so let me think about this for a
I
second.
can watch
So
half of
I have
that.
I have a ton of footage, right? A ton of unreleased footage. I have footage in the Donbass. I have footage of a lot of like interviews with aid workers, like so much footage that I haven't released. But we're taking our time with it because we're trying to do so much stuff on the channel right now. We need to make our channel sustainable, and we want to make sure that when we release these videos that they do well, right? So the videos that we have released so far, I'm fine with you watching any of them on stream, period, as long as you encourage the people to go like the video, comment on it, and just like help the algorithm.
Oh, of course.
Because these videos are extremely difficult to put together. Sometimes they put me down like a lot of money, even just translating. I think translations on my recent video was like $250 just for one video that ended up making like $30, right? So everything is like, we just want it to do well. And that more than anything, I just want people to watch the videos or for them to like, you know, catch attention so people can see what people are saying.
You can probably
So
find
for
people
what-
in your audience who will translate it for free, you know?
I could do that. I just
Okay.
don't know how I feel about that. I think there's a lot of people locally who need jobs right now, and the Ukrainian economy really needs inflow of American greenbacks, because even though the Russian economy is collapsing, the Ukrainian economy obviously is being bombed. It risks capital flight, it risks losing foreign exchange currency, and there's a lot of people struggling right now. So I'd rather hire locals who could fulfill the jobs.
I respect that.
Yeah. So I would say the video that's the most interesting that's up right now. So I did one interview where we interview locals, which is my video in Bucha. It's not as exciting, quote unquote, but we have like in-depth interviews with people who were at Bucha. The other video, which got a lot more attention, was when I was on the front line with troops and we were like spotted by the drone and all that stuff. But I do want to like temper expectations that obviously like we were given 3 hours notice before we went to the front line. We didn't think we were going to get frontline access. It was just offered to us. They liked the cut of my jib. Maybe I was really cute, and they just decided, you know what, we're going to bring it to the front line. And so that means obviously there's like I didn't have all the tech equipment that was necessary, which means like I didn't have like a muffle on the mic. And so there is some like periods where it has like, you know, kind of like bad audio quality when it comes to like the air and stuff like that. But I also think it's important for me to keep the footage as raw as I can, because I think a lot of people don't understand the reason why there's only like 5 seconds of war footage in any CNN piece is because that's the only war footage that they can publish that isn't just like for like the whole segment or like bad camera angles. And so I think just publishing it completely as it was, I wanted to give people a kind of like gonzo journalist first person view of like, this is what it's like on the daily. It isn't all just explosions and death. It's actually mostly quite boring and just people hanging out. And then, oh, look, there's a Russian drone. We run into the forest. And that was the point of the piece. I think a lot of people were like expecting like a CNN type piece when I'm looking for a lot more like raw early Vice kind of gonzo stuff.
So war is mostly vibing and it's not that bad, is your point.
Yeah, yes, that's my exactly point. It's vibing until like all your friends blow up. It's basically war.
Yeah. Well, you know. Could happen to any of us, really.
Yeah. So you can watch any video really. Just I want to make sure that people know what they're getting into. And that I would just obviously would like it if people supported it.
Of course. We would never deny you that. And you're doing wonderful work. We really do appreciate and respect it, you know.
How do you know I'm doing wonderful work if you ever watched the videos or
I have. Well, I think I watched
Damn.
I watched parts of a few of them. I haven't watched a whole one, of course, because I wanted to do it for the stream. But I wanted to see what you were up to, you know?
True. Okay. Gosh, the polls. Can you get them to ever be honest?
You do put out a lot of content. I have to parse out Russia's Ukraine report.
It's
Oh
okay.
shit! Wait, you make way the fuck more videos than I remember. Okay, I'd have to look through this to find which ones I've seen. No, I follow your stuff with interest. I've seen your talks. There we go. Exploring the Reigns of Bucha. Okay, I haven't seen that one. Okay, so that's totally new for me too. Nice.
Yep. We released that. That was us going through the ruins of Bucha. We talked to a nun who was actually at the church where the mass grave was made in Bucha. She talks about how her church parishioners were tortured by the Russian army. How some people were shot and killed by Russian soldiers for speaking Ukrainian. and the shelling and the executions. We talked to somebody else who the entire apartment block she was in burnt to the ground except for her apartment. We talked to her inside that apartment, gave a longer interview. Her husband was actually a Chernobyl liquidator, by the way, which was an interesting tidbit. We toured the local drama theater, which was blown up by the Russians, and local schools that were blown up by the Russians, and hang out with aid workers, do judo.
Wait, one of the liquidators? Those aren't those guys national heroes?
The ones that saved the world, yes.
Yeah, those guys are national heroes.
Yes, her husband was a liquidator. He sadly passed away, though.
Yeah, that tended to happen. Wow.
Chernobyl is very active. It's not as long ago as people think. I mean, I'm in Ukraine, you know. Chernobyl's like right there. It's not that far away from Bucha, man.
Oh wait, chat's asking. The liquidators.
Like 3 hours away.
They were people who dove into the spicy rock pool to keep the rock from getting so spicy that it ended half the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like a lot of them have died. Like almost a lot of them died immediately. A lot of them got cancer. I mean, a lot of them ruined their lives in order to save everybody else's.
Yeah, literal like dozens of dudes like running into the it's oh god, it's like the fucking end of what was it, Fallout 3? Or no wait, it's the end of
I should have told that woman while in her apartment. I should have said, "Oh my god, your husband was a liquidator. That's just like Fallout 3's oi." Or
Wrath of Khan. Remember when Spock? Do you remember when Spock at the end of Wrath of Khan went into the warp drive, even though it was doing something?
Sure, Vaush. Yes, I'll say that.
You haven't seen Wrath of Khan. I'm too young for that, and you're younger than me by far. So
yeah, no, I haven't, man. I'm doing like Fortnite and eating the Tide Pods.
It's a good movie. All right. Anyway, that's pretty wild. That's pretty neat. I guess once your husband died as like an international hero, there's really nothing to do but become a nun. Like, why go for another guy after that, right?
Oh no, that was a separate person.
Sorry. Okay, I crossed those in my head. Okay, my bad. Still, all my other stuff stands.
There's enough tragedy to go around, Vaush. Don't worry.
I leveled all on one person. Just like there's one human left in that town, and they've done everything.
I actually bunked for a decent amount of time with a I don't want to give any specifics, but with a Lebanese family in Ukraine who fled the war in Lebanon, comes here, sets up life, and then the war in Ukraine comes in. I remember like one of the family members told me, like, it seems war just follows us wherever we go. And their father, grandfather, who was a Lebanese communist, ended up actually fixing my helmet when it broke when I was in the Zaporozhye front line.
Shit, better move to America. That's probably your safest bet, right?
And then the Civil War finally pops off.
Yeah, maybe move to, I don't know, New Zealand? They're pretty chill, right?
I don't know, man.
They're pretty chill. They're pretty chill there, I think. New Zealand's pretty cool.
Chill enough, yeah. But I think, New Zealand and being Muslim, has a problem.
Yes. Okay. Antarctica.
Yes. That's what we'll tell them to move and live with penguins. Yes.
Yeah. Just get a boat, just slap it right down on the ice sheet and just sit in the boat. And that way, no matter what happens, you're fine.
It's perfect. They're in international waters where laws don't apply.
Yeah, so the state can't prevent them.
So technically, it's not a war.
All right. Before I say something stupid and offensive, I appreciate you coming on. Seriously, I look forward to watching your content.
Thank you. You are free to watch any of the content I post about, any of the image I post about. Actually, God, I should probably tell you this story because this story will probably interest you, and I'll use this to wrap up. Then I'll shout out all my stuff. Have you ever watched Hacksaw Ridge? You know the movie?
I know about it. I haven't seen it though.
You know what it's about though. Desmond Doss, his legacy.
I have a vague idea of what it's about.
So Desmond Doss was a private in World War II, who for religious reasons refused to use weapons, but he still wanted to serve. And so he became a medic, and he charged into battle without a weapon, and he would save people's life. He ended up saving like 20 or 30 people during the Battle of Hacksaw Ridge. And I met a Ukrainian, a 57-year-old who's been in the conflict since 2014, who has very strong religious convictions to the point where he will not use a gun. And so what he does instead is he has a bulletproof shield and bulletproof vest, and he will run into battle and retrieve the wounded. And that's his role in the war. He doesn't fire weapons. He doesn't use weapons because he doesn't believe in it.
Well, that's pretty Chad-like.
It is pretty. It's pretty Chad-like. I actually posted photos of it. If you wanted to take a look at the guy, I think I'll see if I could find the photos and send it over to you as well.
Oh yeah, no, please, absolutely. Dylan, it's so fucked up how like conservative media figures can be like, I'm putting together a documentary, and then it's like 5 scenes of them doing loaded interviews with people who don't like trans people, and 2 people confronted on the street who have bad answers to the question, what is a woman? You put that together and you have something that goes on IMDb, and you, for far less money, are going to a literal fucking war zone.
Wait, there was supposed to be money?
You know, traditionally, yes, stuff like what you're doing does have a payout. Though, unfortunately, it seems a very asymmetrical payout, depending on the type of stuff that you're doing. Anyway, it's just unfortunate. Hopefully that's rebalanced sometime.
I mean, I'll say, like, I don't have a studio. I don't have, like, a camera crew. I'm basically doing all of this myself. I think in large part for the historical record. Because there are so many people here who want to speak to cameras, no matter how high quality it is or how professional the crew is, just so they can get their message out there. There's so many people who will possibly die with never being able to get their story out there before either they die in battle or they die due to being killed by armies or because in the future people just won't care enough to interview them and spend the money to do it. And so I just want to get as many of those stories on camera as possible and talk about what the reality is out here. Like when I talked about I don't know if you watch a video now, so I don't know if you know this. Like me talking about how I was told to take off my press badge because when I went on the Zaporozhye front line when we were a mile from the Russians, because they told me it made me a bigger target, and so it'd be better just not have it on because they would make me safer. Like that's not the type of stuff that you hear on a CNN report, and that's the only type of stuff if you could really go there, do it yourself, and like try to explain the whole experience to people. And I think that's the importance of this type of freelance journalism in the country. The majority of the journalists out here risking their lives are freelance journalists. They're not tied up with major companies, which also means they're getting terrible payouts, and they're not really getting paid. A lot of the people I knew here, the only reason they left is because they couldn't eat and they were skipping meals. And so it's really important to support freelance journalists, definitely in war zones where that money is almost certainly going to go to transportation costs or costs for money. And a lot of the people here, including myself, any extra money you got, you just throw it at like aid efforts that are going on locally, or like the aid embed you're with, you just throw the money at it. I remember I ended up, and actually I'm going to release a piece on this. This might be the next piece. I ended up giving $500 to 2 people, I can't say who they were, to transport Starlink to Ukrainian troops because they didn't have the money for gas. And we actually got all of it on footage. They recorded the whole experience. It was up during the Battle of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk that they delivered the Starlink. Under fire, by the way. They did it under fire. Really brave folks.
Well, in a just world, you would all be wealthy, you know?
Yeah. I would be like handed out, like pimped out, like gold AKs to the Ukrainian army.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with thinking that. Money is power, and power is money. If you're powerful, you're usually wealthy, and vice versa. Wanting people to be well compensated for the good work that they do isn't it's not greedy, you know. It's self-replicating. If you're well rewarded for work, you can get to do more work. You get to invest more in future projects. That's why I'm
just happy I got the opportunity,
behemoth, you know?
I'm just happy I got the opportunity and people trust me enough to support me here. Because the only reason I'm still in this country is because locals have helped me along the way. Because they trusted me enough to not only give me access to the front line, where I gotta say, like, most freelance journalists, even a lot of establishment journalists, don't get access to the front line, or not getting the interviews I'm getting, not getting to have this footage of delivery of Starlink or being able to embed a mile from Russian positions, especially not freelance journalists and not like fucking, you know, Don Lemon of the major networks. And so I'm just really lucky. Even if it costs everything in the world, I'm just really lucky that I'm being able to do this work that I find very fulfilling.
We're
I'd
glad
probably
you're
do
able
it
to
again
it
if
as
I got
well.
the opportunity.
we're glad you're able to do it as well.
Awesome. So, yeah, I don't want to keep you up. I sent you the picture of the medic. My name's Dylan Burns. You can find me at Dylan Burns TV. That's DYLANBURNS TV on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming actually not too long from now. I'm going to be having a conversation with Professor Ben Burgess about Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan. We have some disagreements about that. I would appreciate any support you can give to my channel as we're trying our best to like get the footage out there. I've been doing a lot of news coverage and kind of like short video essays recently. So if you wanted to check that out on my channel, I would appreciate it. And if you wanted to support me long term to help me budget better for these types of trips so I can do more trips out east, you can go to Dylan Burns TV at Patreon, patreon.com/DylanBurnsTV, and just sub $3, $5, $10 enough a month, 15, 25, whatever you can give. Really appreciate it. Like a whole ton. It means the world to me. I also have a website, dylanburns.tv, where you can find a lot of my stuff too. Thanks so much for having me on, Vaush.
Thank you for coming on.
Awesome. You have a good one. Okay. Don't come to Ukraine. Okay. Don't come here. I know you saw my post about the horse and you liked it, but that's not a regular occurrence. I just want you to know that.
I also heard that it's just bros vibing and chilling out back there. That sounds pretty cool. I don't know. I might visit.
You might. Okay, man. You have a good one. Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.